My name is Naomi, and I'm 29 years old. The moment my brother Preston looked me dead in the eyes at our grandmother's 80th birthday dinner, and said those words, something inside me broke clean in half. We were sitting in this fancy restaurant in Charleston, all crystal chandeliers and white tablecloths, and everyone went silent. My mother looked away like she agreed with him. My father didn't even blink. But then my grandmother Mildred slammed her wrinkled hand down on the table hard enough to make the wine glasses shake, and said in that sharp voice of hers, "Enough. You have no idea what you're talking about, Preston." The look on her face told me she knew something big, something that was about to turn my entire world upside down. Before we dive into what happened next, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. If you've ever felt like the black sheep of your family, hit that like button because you're going to want to hear this whole story. Make sure you subscribe, because what my family did to me and how I finally got my revenge is something you won't believe. Now let me take you back to how I got to that restaurant table, and why my own brother wanted to destroy me. Growing up in the Hartwell family meant understanding your place, and mine was always at the bottom. Preston was 3 years older than me, and from the moment I could form memories, I knew he was the chosen one. My father Warren built a real estate empire from nothing, and Preston was being groomed to inherit it all. Every soccer game Preston played, both our parents were there screaming from the sidelines. When I had my piano recital, they sent the housekeeper to watch me, because they had a business dinner they couldn't miss. That was the pattern my entire childhood. Preston got Harvard, I got community college. Preston got the convertible for his 16th birthday, I got a bus pass. My mother Constance never even tried to hide her favoritism. She would openly compare us at family dinners, talking about how Preston had Warren's business sense and charisma, while I apparently took after some distant relative nobody liked. I worked my way through school and became a social worker, thinking maybe if I helped people, my family would finally see my worth. Instead, they saw it as proof I had no ambition. My father barely acknowledged what I did for a living. When people asked him about his children at country club events, he would go on and on about Preston being vice president of the company, then change the subject before anyone could ask about me. Preston married Sloane 3 years ago, in this massive wedding that cost more than most people's houses. I was a bridesmaid, but Sloane made it clear I was only included because grandmother insisted. The dress they picked for me was 2 sizes too small on purpose. I heard Sloane whisper to one of her friends that they were hoping I wouldn't fit into it at all, so I'd have to drop out. My Aunt Loretta and Uncle Gareth went right along with treating me like I didn't matter. At every holiday, every birthday, every family gathering, I was the punchline. They made jokes about my weight, my clothes, my car, my salary, my apartment. Nothing I did was ever good enough. I could have cured cancer, and they would have found a way to make it sound like a failure. The worst part wasn't even the insults. It was the complete indifference. When I got promoted at work last year to senior case manager, I was so proud. I thought maybe this time they would care. I brought it up at Sunday brunch, and my father literally interrupted me mid-sentence to ask Preston about a golf game. My mother rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic for even trying to share. Preston smirked at me across the table like I was pathetic for still seeking their approval. That's why grandmother's birthday dinner felt different. I had been working a crisis case that day, a teenager who was being abused at home, and I stayed late to make sure she got placed somewhere safe. By the time I got to the restaurant, everyone was already seated. I rushed in wearing the nicest dress I owned, which I bought at a discount store, because that's all I could afford on my salary. The moment I sat down, Preston made this big show of checking his watch and saying loud enough for the whole table to hear, "Look who finally decided to show up. Come to mooch off the family again, Naomi." My mother sighed like I had personally ruined her evening. I tried to explain that I was helping a client, but my father cut me off and asked the waiter for more bread like I hadn't spoken at all. Sloane leaned over to my Aunt Loretta and whispered something about my dress being from last season's clearance rack, but she said it loud enough that I heard every word. I felt my face burning with shame, and I looked down at my plate wishing I could disappear. That's when Preston went for the killing blow. He raised his wine glass and said with this cruel smile, "You know what, Naomi, this family is ashamed to have you share our name. You're an embarrassment." The entire table went quiet. My mother nodded slightly. My father didn't disagree. Aunt Loretta looked away. And I felt something inside me just crumble. Then Grandmother Mildred, who had been quiet all night, slammed her hand on the table. Her eyes were blazing with anger I had never seen before. "Enough," she said in that sharp voice that could cut through steel. "You have no idea what you're talking about, Preston. Not one single idea." Everyone stared at her in shock. Grandmother was usually the peacekeeper, the one who smoothed things over. But right then she looked ready to burn the whole family down. She turned to me and her expression softened. "Naomi, I need to speak with you privately. Soon. There are things you need to know." My father tried to intervene, saying something about not ruining the dinner, but Grandmother shut him down with one look. "Warren, you've done enough damage. Be quiet." The rest of the dinner was tense and awkward. Preston looked confused and angry. My mother kept trying to change the subject. My father's jaw was clenched so tight, I thought his teeth might crack. And I sat there wondering what on earth my grandmother was talking about, what secrets could possibly explain why my family hated me so much. 1 week after that disastrous birthday dinner, Grandmother called me. Her voice sounded tired and older than I remembered. She asked me to come to her estate alone, said it was urgent and I couldn't tell anyone else in the family. I drove out to her place on the edge of town, this beautiful old house with gardens that had been in our family for generations. When I got there, she was sitting in her sunroom looking frail in a way that scared me. She gestured for me to sit down and then said the words that changed everything. "Naomi, I have stage 4 cancer. The doctors say I have a few months at most." I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. Grandmother was the only person in that family who had ever shown me real love, and now I was losing her. I started crying and she took my hand. "Don't cry yet, sweetheart. There are things I need to tell you before I run out of time, things that will help you understand why you've been treated the way you have." She took a deep breath and then dropped the first bomb. "Warren is not your biological father." I sat there frozen, unable to process what she just said. Grandmother continued, her voice steady but sad. "Your mother Constance had an affair 30 years ago. The man's name was Javier. He was a construction worker, good man, kind heart. When Constance got pregnant with you, she convinced Warren the baby was his. Javier died in an accident before you were born, never even knew Constance was carrying his child. I felt like I was having an out-of-body experience. Everything I thought I knew about my identity was crumbling. Grandmother wasn't done. Warren discovered the truth when you were 5 years old. He did a DNA test without telling anyone because he was suspicious. When the results came back showing you weren't his, he could have divorced Constance. But instead, he made a different choice. He decided to punish you for the rest of your life. That's when it all clicked into place. The coldness, the neglect, the cruelty. It wasn't because of anything I did wrong. It was because every time Warren looked at me, he saw his wife's betrayal. And he took it out on an innocent child for 24 years. But grandmother wasn't finished destroying my world. There's more, Naomi. Something worse. She pulled out a folder from beside her chair and handed it to me with shaking hands. When you were born, I set up a trust fund for you. $500,000. It was meant for your education, your future, to give you the security and opportunities you deserved. My heart started racing. I never knew anything about a trust fund. Warren was named as the trustee since he was your legal father. He was supposed to manage it until you turned 25, then transfer it to you. But he never did that. And I just found out why. She opened the folder and showed me bank statements and legal documents. Warren secretly transferred all that money to Preston 3 years ago. He forged my signature on the documents authorizing the transfer. Preston used your inheritance as the down payment on that mansion he bought. I couldn't breathe. $500,000. That was enough to have paid for a real college education, to have started my own practice, to have built a completely different life. And they stole it from me. Grandmother's lawyer Desmond had helped her uncover the theft. She had been noticing irregularities in her accounts and asked him to investigate. That's when they discovered not just the stolen trust fund, but years of Warren manipulating her finances. I want to make this right, Naomi, grandmother said, gripping my hand tighter. I want to expose what they did and get you justice. Desmond is gathering all the evidence. But I need you to do something for me. Don't confront them yet. Stay quiet and act normal. If they know we're onto them, they'll destroy evidence and we'll never be able to prove anything. I nodded even though every part of me wanted to march into Preston's house and scream at him. I wanted to ask my mother how she could let this happen. I wanted to demand answers from the man who raised me, but never saw me as his daughter. But grandmother was right. We needed to be smart about this. The drive home was a blur. I kept thinking about Javier, the father I never knew. What would my life have been like if he had lived? Would he have loved me the way a parent should? Would I have grown up knowing what it felt like to be cherished instead of tolerated? I looked at myself in the rearview mirror and tried to see traces of this stranger in my features. My dark hair and brown eyes suddenly made sense. I never looked like Preston, or my mother or Warren. I always wondered why family photos showed such a stark difference. Now I knew. I wasn't really part of that family at all. The man I called father had spent my entire life punishing me for my mother's sins. And my brother, the golden child, had literally stolen my future and used it to build his own. I got back to my apartment and collapsed on the couch. The rage and grief were overwhelming. But underneath all that pain, something else was starting to grow. A determination to make them pay for what they did. Grandmother was giving me the chance to fight back, and I wasn't going to waste it. 2 weeks passed and they were the hardest weeks of my life. I had to show up to family Sunday brunch and pretend nothing had changed. I had to smile and nod while Preston bragged about his upcoming promotion to CEO when Warren retired. I had to watch my mother gush over Preston's accomplishments while looking at me like I was a stain on her designer dress. The whole time I was screaming inside, wanting to throw the truth in their faces. But I kept my promise to grandmother. Desmond was working behind the scenes gathering evidence. We just needed a little more time. Preston announced at that brunch that the board of directors was voting next month to officially name him as Warren's successor. Warren beamed with pride. Constance actually teared up with joy. Sloane sat there with this satisfied smile, like she had won the lottery. And I sat there knowing that the mansion they were all so proud of was bought with money stolen from me. I kept my face neutral and my mouth shut. But I watched them carefully. And I noticed Preston watching me too. There was something calculating in his expression, like he was trying to figure out what I was thinking. The trap was sprung at the next family gathering. My mother had everyone over to her house for what she called a casual lunch, but nothing Constance did was ever casual. The table was set with china that cost more than my monthly rent. Everyone was dressed like they were going to a country club. I wore simple black pants and a blouse, the nicest work clothes I had. We were halfway through the meal when my mother suddenly gasped and put her hand to her throat. "My necklace," she said, her voice rising with panic. "My diamond necklace is gone. I left it on my dresser when I was getting ready and now it's not there." Everyone started talking at once. The necklace she was talking about was worth $50,000, a gift from Warren on their last anniversary. My father immediately demanded that everyone stay put while he searched the house. My stomach dropped, because I knew something was wrong. The way Preston was looking at me, that same calculating expression, told me this was planned. Warren came back downstairs 15 minutes later looking grim. "It's not in the house. Someone must have taken it." And then Preston, my dear brother Preston, suddenly said, "Wait. Naomi, can I see your purse?" I stared at him. "What? Why?" He stood up and walked over to where I had left my bag by the door. "Just humor me." He picked up my purse and before I could stop him, he opened it and reached inside. When he pulled his hand back out, he was holding my mother's diamond necklace. The whole room erupted. My mother started crying. My father's face turned red with rage. Aunt Loretta gasped. Uncle Gareth shook his head in disgust. And I sat there in complete shock, because I knew with absolute certainty that I didn't take that necklace. Someone planted it in my bag. "I didn't do this," I said, but my voice came out weak and shaky. "You have to believe me. Someone put that in my purse." Preston held up the necklace with this expression of righteous anger that would have been convincing if I didn't know what a snake he was. "Really, Naomi? You're going to lie about this when we all saw it in your bag?" My father was already pulling out his phone. "I'm calling the police. This is theft. She's going to jail for this." My mother was sobbing dramatically, saying she couldn't believe her own daughter would steal from her. Even grandmother's voice defending me sounded weak. She was too sick to fight hard, and I could see the helplessness in her eyes. That's when I realized the full scope of what was happening. Someone had overheard grandmother and me talking. Or maybe they suspected we were planning something. This was Preston's preemptive strike. If I was arrested and charged with theft, my credibility would be destroyed. No one would believe anything I said about the stolen inheritance. Any evidence we brought forward would be dismissed as the desperate lies of a thief. It was brilliant and evil. Warren gave me an ultimatum. "You have two choices, Naomi. Option 1, I call the police right now and you get arrested for theft. You'll have a criminal record, probably do jail time. Option 2, you sign a document agreeing to never contact this family again. You'll also agree to make no claim to any alleged inheritances or trust funds, now or in the future. You'll sign away any legal right to be considered part of this family." My mother added with venom in her voice, "You were never really one of us anyway." Preston stood there with his arms crossed, that smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. He knew he had won. The document was already prepared, which proved this whole thing was planned. I looked at grandmother, and she gave me the tiniest nod. "Sign it," her eyes said. "We'll fight another way." So I took the pen, with a shaking hand and signed every page of that hateful document that erased me from the family. But while everyone was watching me sign, I used my phone under the table to photograph every single page. They might have forced me to sign, but I was taking evidence with me. After I signed, Warren literally pointed at the door. "Get out. Don't come back. Don't call. Don't write. As far as this family is concerned, you don't exist." I stood up on legs that felt like water. I looked at each of them one more time. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. My father looked satisfied. Preston was trying not to smile. Aunt Loretta whispered something to Uncle Gareth, and they both shook their heads at me. Grandmother was crying silently, too weak to do more than watch me leave. I walked out of that house and got in my car, and drove 3 blocks, before I had to pull over, because I was crying too hard to see the road. I had just been erased from my own family. Everything I feared my whole life had come true. They didn't just reject me. They legally removed me from their lives. And the worst part was knowing it was all based on a lie. I didn't steal that necklace. They framed me. And they did it to protect themselves from the truth that was about to come out. But they made one mistake. They underestimated how much I was willing to fight back. I spent the next 3 days in my apartment barely eating or sleeping. I called in sick to work, because I couldn't face anyone. I felt completely alone in the world. The family that never really wanted me had finally made it official. I kept looking at the photos I took of that document, the one that legally cut me off from them. Part of me wanted to just give up. What was the point of fighting when they had all the money, all the power, all the connections? I was just one person with no resources and a family that would destroy me before they let the truth come out. I was seriously considering just leaving town, starting over somewhere else with a new name, when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. The voice on the other end said, "Naomi. This is Silas. Your cousin. We need to talk." Silas was Uncle Gareth's son, but I barely knew him. He left town years ago, after some kind of falling out with the family, and nobody ever talked about him. I hadn't seen him since I was a teenager. "I was at that lunch," he said. "I was outside talking on the phone when everything happened. I came in right as Preston was pulling that necklace out of your purse. And Naomi, I want you to know that I didn't believe it for a second. I saw the whole setup." I started crying again, but this time it was relief. Someone believed me. "I need to tell you something," Silas continued. "Warren and Preston did the same thing to me 10 years ago. Different scam, same family." He told me his story. Our grandfather had owned a watch repair business that he promised would go to Silas when he died. But after the funeral, Warren produced documents showing that grandfather had changed his mind and wanted Warren to have control of the business instead. Warren sold it immediately and kept all the money. Silas tried to fight it, but he was young and had no resources. Eventually he gave up and moved to another state to get away from the family. I came back recently, because I heard grandmother was sick. I wanted to see her before it was too late. And when I saw what they did to you, I knew I had to help. We can't let them keep getting away with this. Silas had connections I didn't know about. He was friends with a private investigator named Malcolm who owed him a favor. Malcolm agreed to help us pro bono after hearing what the family had done. Within a week, Malcolm started uncovering things that made my head spin. Warren had been embezzling money from grandmother's accounts for years. Preston was in massive debt despite appearing wealthy. The mansion was mortgaged to the hilt. Preston had a gambling problem he was hiding from everyone. He owed money to people who weren't patient about collecting. Sloane, Preston's perfect wife, was having an affair with Warren's business partner Donovan. The family that looked so successful and put together from the outside was actually falling apart. Malcolm also found the hacker who Preston had hired to frame me, a guy named Trent who specialized in making digital evidence look real. Trent had created false trails showing I stole from my work account too, which explained the setup I was about to walk into at my job, but didn't know about yet. Then Desmond, grandmother's lawyer, reached out to me directly. Grandmother's condition was getting worse fast. She was in and out of the hospital now. But before her mind went, she had done something crucial. She made a video testimony explaining everything. The affair, the truth about my father, Warren's abuse and theft over the years. She also had him draft a new will that left half her estate to me. Warren didn't know about this will. He thought the old one was still in effect, the one that left everything to him. Desmond had proof of the forged trust fund documents. He had bank statements showing exactly where my money went. He had years of financial records showing Warren's theft from grandmother. We were building a real case, something that could actually hurt them. But we needed more evidence, more time to make it airtight. Malcolm suggested we needed to get someone on the inside, someone who could access Preston and Warren's private files and communications. That seemed impossible until the most unexpected person reached out to me. Sloane. Preston's wife contacted me through a burner phone number. She wanted to meet in secret. I was suspicious, because why would she help me after being part of the family that just destroyed me? But Silas convinced me to hear her out, and Malcolm came with me to the meeting for safety. Sloane showed up looking nothing like the polished woman I knew. Her eyes were puffy from crying and her hands shook as she ordered coffee. "I know you have no reason to trust me," she started. "But I need you to know that I didn't know about the necklace. I swear. Preston told me after you left that it was all planned. He was laughing about it." She took a breath. "I want to help you destroy him." Sloane had discovered Preston's gambling debts. She found out about his theft from the company. And worst of all, she found out that Preston had been having an affair with her younger sister Bianca for over a year. "I gave him everything," Sloane said, her voice breaking. "I defended him. I stood by him. And he betrayed me in the worst possible way. So yes, I want revenge. And I have access to his laptop, his files, his passwords. I can get you everything you need." Malcolm and I exchanged looks. This could be the break we needed. Or it could be another trap. 1 month after being expelled from my family, I finally went back to work. My supervisor Geneva had been understanding about my sick leave, and I thought maybe I could start rebuilding my life even while the investigation was happening in the background. My job at social services was the one place I felt like I mattered. My clients needed me. The work was hard but meaningful. I threw myself into it, trying not to think about the family that disowned me or the battle that was coming. For 2 weeks, things felt almost normal. I was helping a single mother get housing assistance. I was working with a teenager in foster care to find her permanent placement. I was making a difference. Then Geneva called me into her office with an expression I had never seen before. She looked like she was about to cry. "Naomi, I don't know how to say this," Geneva started. She had a file folder on her desk and her hands were clasped tightly on top of it. "There's been a serious allegation made against you. An anonymous complaint came through the state hotline claiming that you've been stealing from the Client Assistance Fund." I felt the blood drain from my face. Not again. They couldn't be doing this to me again. "That's not true," I said immediately. "Geneva, you know me. I would never steal from clients. This is a lie." Geneva looked miserable. I want to believe you, Naomi. I really do. But we have to take all allegations seriously, and when the auditors looked into it, they found something. She opened the folder and showed me bank statements and transaction records. $10,000 had been transferred out of the client assistance fund that I managed. The money went to an account that had my name on it. The transfers were made using my login credentials during my work hours. My own computer had been used for the transactions. The evidence was overwhelming and completely fabricated. I never made those transfers, I said, but even I could hear how weak it sounded. I don't even recognize that bank account. Someone hacked my credentials. Someone is framing me. Geneva's expression was sympathetic, but firm. I believe that you believe that, Naomi. But I have no choice here. The board of directors is demanding that I suspend you immediately pending a full investigation. The state is opening a criminal inquiry. Your access to all systems has been revoked. I felt like I was going to be sick. Geneva, please. My clients need me. The Henderson family is about to lose their housing. Maria's court date is next week, and she needs an advocate. I can't just abandon them. Geneva's voice was gentle but final. I'm sorry. Other caseworkers will take over your files. You need to gather your personal items and leave the building today. I sat there unable to move. In 1 month, I had lost my family and now I was losing my career. My reputation in the community was destroyed. The local news had already picked up the story. Social worker accused of embezzling from fund meant to help vulnerable families. My face would be all over the evening broadcast. Everyone would think I was a monster who stole from people who had nothing. I called Malcolm as soon as I left the building. He got to work immediately investigating the theft accusation. Within 2 days, he had traced it back to the hacker Trent, the same one Preston used before. Trent had created a fake bank account using my personal information. He used sophisticated malware to remotely access my work computer and make it look like I was the one transferring money. The money didn't even stay in the fake account. It was immediately transferred to an offshore account that Malcolm traced back to Preston. They didn't even keep the money. This wasn't about $10,000. This was about destroying my credibility before the legal battle over the inheritance could begin. If I was publicly accused of theft twice, who would believe anything I said about Preston and Warren stealing from me? The media would paint me as a serial liar making up stories about her family. Any jury would dismiss me as unreliable. It was a calculated move to ensure I couldn't fight back. I hit rock bottom that week. I had no job, no family, no reputation. I was facing 2 separate criminal investigations for thefts I didn't commit. The rent on my apartment was due and I had burned through most of my savings on legal fees and living expenses. I couldn't get another job, because who would hire someone under investigation for embezzlement? My friends from work stopped calling, because they didn't know what to believe. I spent entire days in bed staring at the ceiling wondering if I should just give up. Maybe Warren was right. Maybe I should just disappear and let them win. One night, I was seriously considering running away, just getting in my car and driving until I ran out of gas, when Silas showed up at my door. He took one look at me and knew I was about to break. "Don't you dare give up," he said, walking in without being invited. "That's exactly what they want. They're attacking you this hard, because they are scared. They know we're getting close to exposing them and they're desperate to stop you before you can fight back." But Naomi, Malcolm is almost done gathering evidence. Sloan has been copying files from Preston's computer. Desmond has the video testimony from grandmother. We're so close. You just have to hold on a little bit longer. He was right, but holding on felt impossible. How am I supposed to keep fighting when they have all the power? I asked. They have money, lawyers, connections. I have nothing. Silas shook his head. You have the truth. And you have people who believe in you. Me, Malcolm, Desmond, even Sloane in her own way. We're building something they can't fight. All their money and power won't save them once everything comes out. He stayed with me that night, ordering takeout and making me eat even though I had no appetite. He told me more about what happened to him, how he almost gave up too, how he wished he had fought back instead of running. Don't make my mistake, he said. Don't let them chase you away from the life you built. You're a good person, Naomi. You help people. You matter. And they're terrified of that, because it reminds them how empty they are inside. By the time he left, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. It was small and fragile, but it was there. I wasn't going to give up. I was going to fight. 3 days later, my mother showed up at my apartment. It was close to midnight, and I wasn't expecting anyone. When I looked through the peephole and saw Constance standing there, my first instinct was to not open the door. But she looked distressed in a way I had never seen. Her hair wasn't perfectly styled. Her makeup was smudged. She was wearing casual clothes instead of her usual designer outfits. She knocked again and called out, "Naomi, please. I need to talk to you. Alone." Against my better judgment, I opened the door. Constance walked in and immediately started crying. Not the fake dramatic tears from the necklace incident. Real tears that made her shoulders shake. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I'm so sorry for everything. For how you've been treated. For what they did to you. I can't live with this guilt anymore." I stood there with my arms crossed, not buying it yet. "What are you doing here, Constance?" She flinched at me using her first name instead of calling her mom. "I know you don't believe me. I know I don't deserve your trust. But I need you to know that I feel terrible about what happened with the necklace. Preston told me after you left that it was all planned. He planted it in your purse. I didn't know beforehand, I swear." She was pacing my small living room. "And the thing at your job, I just found out about that too. Warren and Preston have been planning all of this. They know about grandmother's investigation. They know you're building a case against them. They're trying to destroy your credibility before you can expose them." This was new information. How did they know about the investigation? Had someone leaked it? Constance continued, "I want to help you. I'll testify that Preston framed you with the necklace. I'll help you get your job back by telling the truth about what they're doing. I know I've been a terrible mother, but please, let me try to make this right." I wanted so badly to believe her. Despite everything, some part of me still craved my mother's approval and love. "Why now?" I asked. "Why are you suddenly on my side after 30 years of treating me like garbage?" Constance sat down on my couch and put her face in her hands. "Because I'm sick of living with Warren's anger. I'm sick of Preston's manipulation. I'm sick of pretending to be this perfect family when we're all miserable. And I'm sick of what we did to you. You deserved better, Naomi. You deserved a mother who protected you instead of joining in when they tore you down." She looked up at me with red eyes. "Let me help you. Tell me about the investigation. Tell me what evidence you have. I can help you get more. I have access to Warren's office, his files. I can be your person on the inside." Something felt off. The questions were too specific. She kept asking where I was keeping evidence. Who else knew about the investigation? What exactly did grandmother's lawyer have? What was Malcolm's plan? I tested her. Desmond found something huge, I said, making it up as I went. Warren has a secret bank account in the Cayman Islands with millions that he embezzled from his own company. The evidence is locked in a safe deposit box at First National Bank. I watched Constance's face carefully. She immediately leaned forward. Which branch? What's the box number? How did Desmond get access to that information? And that's when I knew for sure. She wasn't here to help me. She was here to gather intelligence for Warren and Preston. I stood up and walked over to her. Show me what's under your necklace. Constance's hand immediately went to her throat. What? There's nothing. You're being paranoid. Show me, I demanded. She stood up quickly and started backing toward the door. I should go. This was a mistake. You're clearly not ready to accept help. I moved between her and the exit. You're wearing a wire. They sent you here to find out what we know and what evidence we have. Constance's face changed. The fake concern disappeared and was replaced with cold calculation. Get out of my way, Naomi. I raised my voice. How could you do this? You're my mother. Doesn't that mean anything to you? She laughed, and it was the cruelest sound I had ever heard. Mother. I stopped being your mother the day I found out you weren't Warren's. Do you want to know the truth? I wanted to abort you. Warren talked me out of it, because he didn't know you weren't his yet. But after he found out, he wanted to send you to boarding school and pretend you didn't exist. I'm the one who said no because I didn't want the scandal. Every day of your life has been me tolerating your existence when I never wanted you in the first place. The words hit me like physical blows. Javier was nothing. You are nothing. Preston is my real child. My only child. You were always just a mistake I had to live with. A reminder of the biggest error of my life. Warren wanted me to stay married to him, so I did. But that meant keeping you around. Do you have any idea how much I resented you every single day? She was fully dropped the act now. Her face was twisted with genuine hatred. You should have never been born. And now you're trying to destroy my real family with your lies and your lawyers. I came here to find out what you have so we can crush you before you do any more damage. And you fell for it because you're so desperate for a mother's love that you'll believe anything. She pushed past me and opened the door. You'll never win this, Naomi. We have more money, more power, more connections than you can imagine. You're just a pathetic social worker with delusions of justice. Give up now before we destroy what's left of your life. Then she was gone, leaving me standing in my apartment shaking with anger and grief. I immediately called Silas and Malcolm. We had an emergency meeting at Malcolm's office. The wire Constance was wearing meant they had recorded our entire conversation. They knew about Silas and Malcolm now. They knew we were investigating. I had stupidly mentioned the fake detail about the Cayman Islands account, which would tip them off that I was suspicious. But the recording also captured me adamantly denying the theft charges and explaining that I was being framed. It captured Constance admitting that Preston planted the necklace. It captured her saying they knew about the investigation. In her rage, Constance had actually given us evidence we could use. Malcolm said, "They're going to move fast now. They'll destroy whatever evidence they can and prepare for a legal battle. We need to file our lawsuit immediately, before they have time to cover their tracks." Desmond agreed. He had enough to move forward. Grandmother's video testimony. The proof of the forged trust fund. Evidence of Warren embezzling from Mildred. Malcolm had Trent ready to testify about being hired to frame me. And now we had Constance on recording admitting to the necklace setup. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to start the fight. File everything tomorrow, I said. I'm done hiding. I'm done being afraid. Let's end this. We gathered at Desmond's office the next morning to prepare the legal assault. Silas, Malcolm, Desmond and I sat around the conference table while Desmond laid out the strategy. We were filing multiple lawsuits simultaneously. Civil suit against Preston and Warren for theft of my inheritance. Criminal complaint against Preston for fraud and embezzlement from his own company. Separate suit against Warren for elder financial abuse of grandmother Mildred. Motion for restraining order to prevent them from destroying evidence. Request to freeze both Preston and Warren's assets, so they couldn't hide money offshore. It was comprehensive and devastating. Desmond had also drafted a motion to overturn the document I signed at that awful family lunch, arguing that it was signed under duress and based on fraudulent claims. Malcolm had been busy too. He finally got the hacker Trent to agree to testify in exchange for immunity from prosecution. Trent brought digital evidence showing every communication with Preston. The emails with instructions. The payment records. Screenshots of Preston telling him exactly how to frame me at work. It was damning. Then Sloane showed up with her lawyer and a thumb drive. I did what I promised, she said, sliding the drive across the table. Everything from Preston's laptop. Emails, financial records, text messages. There's proof of him stealing from the company. Evidence of his gambling debts. Communications with Warren about framing you. All of it. Her lawyer added, my client is prepared to testify in exchange for protection and a guarantee of a favorable divorce settlement. She wants immunity from any charges related to knowledge of these activities. Desmond reviewed the contents of the drive right there and I watched his eyes get wider. This is everything we needed. Preston and Warren incriminated themselves in writing. They thought they were safe communicating digitally because they controlled everything, but they got sloppy. Sloane looked at me. I know you don't trust me. I don't blame you. But Preston destroyed our marriage and humiliated me. I want him to lose everything the way he made me feel like nothing. So yes, I'm testifying. I'm taking him down. Malcolm got a call while we were meeting. He stepped out and came back looking serious. That was the hospital. Your grandmother's condition has deteriorated significantly. They don't think she has much time left. My heart sank. Mildred was the reason we were fighting. She deserved to see justice before she died. Desmond immediately said, I need to get her final testimony on video today. If she passes before the trial, we need her words preserved. We all rushed to the hospital. Grandmother looked so small in that bed, surrounded by machines. But when she saw me, her eyes lit up. Naomi, she whispered. I took her hand. We're doing it, grandmother. We're fighting back. We have evidence. We're filing lawsuits tomorrow. She squeezed my hand weakly. Good. Make them pay for what they did to you. Make them pay for what they did to me. Desmond set up his camera and recorded her testimony. She was lucid and clear despite the pain medication. She named Warren as a financial abuser who had stolen from her accounts for years. She confirmed that Preston used my inheritance money for his house. She explained how the trust fund documents were forged. She stated clearly that I was her granddaughter regardless of biology, and that she loved me. She left specific instructions for her will that left the majority of her estate to me and Silas. After the recording, I stayed with grandmother while the others left to file papers. She looked at me and said, "I'm sorry I didn't protect you better when you were growing up. I knew Warren was treating you differently, but I didn't know why until recently. I should have fought harder for you." I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. "You're fighting for me now. That's what matters." She smiled. "You're going to be okay, sweetheart. You're stronger than all of them combined. They tried to break you, but you wouldn't break. I'm so proud of you." Those were the last words she said to me. She slipped into unconsciousness that evening and never woke up. I was holding her hand when she passed away 2 days later. The grief was overwhelming, but underneath it was gratitude. She had given me the tools to fight back. She had believed in me when no one else did. And she had made sure that even after she was gone, I wouldn't be alone. The day after grandmother died, everything started happening at once. Uncle Gareth showed up at my apartment. I hadn't seen him since the necklace incident, and I assumed he hated me like the rest of them. But he looked ashamed when I opened the door. "Can I come in?" he asked quietly. I let him in, wary. He sat down and said, "Silas told me everything. Showed me the evidence. I had no idea how bad things were. I knew Warren treated you differently, but I told myself it wasn't my business. I was wrong." He looked at me with regret. "I'm sorry, Naomi. I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you. I'm sorry I went along with them. And I want to help now if you'll let me. I know things about Warren's business practices that could help your case. Illegal things. I've kept quiet for years, but I don't want to protect him anymore." Gareth's testimony added another layer to our case. He had witnessed Warren bribing city officials to get permits. He knew about properties Warren flipped using insider information from his position on the zoning board. He had seen Warren manipulate contracts to cheat partners out of their fair share. It was years of evidence from someone who worked closely with Warren and couldn't be dismissed as biased. With Gareth on our side, we had family members willing to testify against Warren and Preston. The perfect family image was crumbling. Desmond filed all the lawsuits that afternoon. Civil, criminal, restraining orders, asset freezes, everything. The papers were served simultaneously at Warren's office and Preston's home. I imagined their faces when they realized the attack was coming from every direction. They probably thought they had successfully discredited me and destroyed my ability to fight back. They thought I would slink away defeated. Instead, we were bringing the full weight of the legal system down on them. Malcolm arranged for the local news to be ready to cover the story. We had copies of all the evidence prepared for media release. This wasn't just going to be a courtroom battle. This was going to be public. Everyone was going to know what they did. Warren called an emergency family meeting at his house the day the lawsuits were served. Preston, Constance, and Aunt Loretta all gathered in his study trying to figure out how to respond. They were panicking. Multiple lawyers had already called saying the evidence against them was substantial. The media was asking questions. Their carefully constructed world was falling apart. That's when I walked in. Silas was with me. Malcolm was with me. And Detective Ellis from the Fraud Division was with me because Malcolm had convinced him to come see something interesting. I also brought something they didn't expect. A local news camera crew that Malcolm had arranged. The journalist was already rolling as I walked through the door that I had been thrown out of just months before. "What the hell is this?" Warren shouted. "Get out of my house." "This is grandmother's house," I corrected him calmly. "And according to the will that was just read by her lawyer, this house now belongs to me and Silas." So actually, you get out. The look on his face was priceless. Desmond had filed the will for probate immediately after grandmother's death. The house and the majority of her estate went to me and Silas, with smaller portions to Charity and Gareth. Warren, Preston, and Constance got nothing. They had been counting on that inheritance to solve their financial problems. Preston especially needed it, because his gambling debts were crushing him. Now it was all gone. I turned to Preston. How does it feel to lose everything you thought was yours? That's what you did to me. You stole my inheritance and bought a mansion with it. Now you're going to lose that mansion and a lot more. Preston's face turned red. You can't prove anything. This is all lies and you know it. Malcolm stepped forward with a laptop. Actually, we can prove everything. And we're going to show everyone right now. He connected to the TV in the study and pulled up the evidence. First was the video of grandmother's testimony. Her voice filled the room explaining Warren's theft, Preston's use of my inheritance money, the years of financial abuse. Constance looked like she wanted to run. Then Malcolm played recordings of Preston hiring Trent to frame me. The emails were displayed on the screen, showing Preston's exact instructions to the hacker. Bank statements appeared showing the path of my stolen inheritance money from the trust fund to Preston's account to the down payment on his house. The forged documents with grandmother's fake signature appeared next to the originals. Every piece of evidence we had gathered was displayed one after another. The news camera captured everything. This was going out live on the evening broadcast and streaming online. The whole city was watching the Hartwell family get exposed. Warren finally lost control. He stood up and shouted, "Fine. You want the truth? You were never my daughter. Why should you get anything from this family? Your mother cheated on me with some worthless construction worker and got pregnant. I raised you out of obligation. I gave you a home, food, clothes. And this is how you repay me. By destroying everything I built." The camera kept rolling. He was confessing to everything on live television. "I took that money because you didn't deserve it. Preston is my real son. He earned that money by being part of this family, by being my blood. You were just a mistake we had to tolerate." Malcolm let him finish his rant, making sure every word was recorded. Then Sloane walked in with her lawyer. Preston's face went white. "What are you doing here?" he demanded. Sloane smiled coldly. "I'm here to make sure you lose everything, darling." She had documents proving Preston embezzled from his father's company to pay gambling debts. She had proof of his affair with her sister. She had emails showing him planning to fake an accident to collect insurance money. Preston had been even more corrupt than we realized. Detective Ellis stepped forward. "Preston Hartwell, you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy." He read Preston his rights while the camera kept rolling. Preston started screaming that this was a setup, that I had manipulated everyone, that the evidence was fake. But nobody was listening. The detective handcuffed him and led him out. Constance started crying her fake tears again. "This is all your fault, Naomi. We were a happy family until you started causing trouble." I looked at her with complete calm. "No. You were never a happy family. You were a family built on lies, theft, and abuse. And now everyone knows the truth." Warren's phone started ringing. Then it kept ringing. The board of directors from his company was calling. The media was calling. His lawyers were calling. Everything was falling apart in real time. The news segment went viral online. Social media exploded with people talking about the corrupt wealthy family that abused their daughter for decades. My former employer saw the evidence clearing my name and called to apologize. The criminal charges against me for both alleged thefts were dropped. My reputation was being restored while theirs was being destroyed. Warren's company held an emergency board meeting that night and voted to remove him as CEO. They opened an internal investigation into his business practices. Federal investigators announced they were looking into his real estate deals for fraud and bribery. Preston's company fired him and filed their own lawsuit to recover the money he embezzled. Within hours, everything they had built was crumbling. 2 weeks after that dramatic confrontation, I sat in Grandmother Mildred's hospital room one last time, before they cleared it out. She had passed away peacefully knowing that justice was coming. I held her hand even though she was gone and whispered, "We did it, Grandmother. We made them pay." The funeral was small and quiet. Just me, Silas, Uncle Gareth, and a few of Grandmother's close friends who knew her before she married into wealth. Warren, Preston, and Constance weren't welcome. I made sure of that. As I stood by her grave, I felt both grief and gratitude. She had given me the truth, the tools, and the courage to fight back. Without her, I would have spent the rest of my life believing I deserved to be treated like garbage. Instead, I learned that I deserved love, respect, and justice. The will reading happened a few days later. Desmond gathered everyone who was named in the will at his office. Grandmother left 60% of her estate to me, which came out to $2.3 million. She left 20% to Silas as acknowledgement of the wrongs done to him years ago. 15% went to various charities that helped abused and neglected children. 5% went to Gareth with a specific condition that he maintain a relationship with both Silas and me. Warren, Preston, and Constance got nothing. Not a single dollar. The will specifically stated that they had proven themselves unworthy of her legacy through their cruelty and theft. When Desmond read that part, I felt a satisfaction I had never experienced before. They had spent years stealing from me, from Grandmother, from anyone they could exploit. Now they were getting exactly what they deserved, which was nothing. The legal outcomes kept rolling in over the next few months. Preston was convicted of fraud and embezzlement and sentenced to 4 years in prison. His mansion was foreclosed on. Sloan took everything in the divorce settlement, which wasn't much after the legal fees and debts were settled. Warren faced multiple criminal charges and civil lawsuits. He ended up pleading guilty to elder abuse and financial fraud to avoid a longer prison sentence. He got 3 years. His real estate empire collapsed completely. The company was dissolved and assets were sold to pay back victims of his schemes. His reputation was destroyed so thoroughly that he became a cautionary tale about corporate greed. Constance divorced Warren before the sentencing to protect what little money she had left. Last I heard, she was living in a small apartment and working retail. She tried to contact me once asking for financial help. I declined but offered to pay for therapy if she wanted to work on herself. She refused, unable to admit she had ever done anything wrong. My life transformed in ways I never imagined. I used part of Grandmother's inheritance to start my own practice specializing in family trauma. I help people who were scapegoated by their families, who were abused by the people who should have loved them. I wrote an article about my experience that went viral, and suddenly, I was getting invited to speak at conferences about family dynamics and healing from narcissistic abuse. I became an advocate for adult survivors of family abuse, showing people that it's possible to escape and build a better life. The work is hard, but meaningful in ways my old job never was. I'm helping people find their voices and their worth, just like Grandmother helped me find mine. Silas became the brother I always needed but never had. We talk almost every day. We have dinner together weekly. We support each other through the healing process, because we both carry scars from that family. Uncle Gareth worked hard to repair his relationship with Silas, and slowly I've let him into my life too. The three of us created new family traditions that have nothing to do with money or status or competition. We just enjoy being together. We laugh. We share stories. We support each other's dreams. This is what family should have always been. During my research into my biological father Javier, I discovered he had 2 other children from a previous relationship. My half-siblings Mateo and Lucia reached out after seeing the news coverage. They welcomed me with open arms and shared photos and stories about our father. He was apparently a kind man who loved his family and worked hard to provide for them. He died too young in a construction accident, never knowing Constance was pregnant with me. Meeting Mateo and Lucia gave me a connection to the father I never knew. They look like me in ways Preston never did. We have the same eyes, the same smile. Being with them feels natural and easy. They don't want anything from me except a relationship, and that's more valuable than any inheritance. Malcolm and I grew close during the investigation, and the friendship evolved into something more. We started dating about 6 months after everything was settled. He's the first man who ever really saw me, valued me, supported me without trying to control or diminish me. We're taking it slow, because I'm still learning what a healthy relationship looks like. But being with him feels safe in a way nothing ever has before. He makes me laugh. He encourages my work. He celebrates my victories and comforts me through the hard days. I never knew love could be this uncomplicated and genuine. On the 1-year anniversary of the confrontation, I went to grandmother's grave with fresh flowers. I told her about the practice I started, about the people I was helping, about the family I had built with Silas and Gareth and Malcolm. I told her I was happy, genuinely happy, maybe for the first time in my life. I realized as I stood there that losing my toxic family was the greatest gift I could have received. Freedom from their cruelty, their manipulation, their constant message that I wasn't good enough. I was better off without them. I learned that family isn't about blood. It's about love and respect and showing up for each other. You can't control how other people treat you, you can only control how you respond. Sometimes the people who hurt you most will never change, will never apologize, will never acknowledge the damage they caused. And that's okay. Your worth isn't determined by people who can't see it. Walking away from toxicity isn't giving up, it's choosing yourself. It's deciding that you deserve better than crumbs of affection and mountains of abuse. Preston is in prison learning that actions have consequences. Warren is broken alone, facing the reality that money can't buy back respect or love. Constance is bitter and isolated, still blaming everyone else for her problems. And me. I'm free. I'm building a life filled with people who choose to love me, work that fulfills me, and peace I never thought possible. They tried to break me by saying I didn't belong. But the truth is, I never wanted to belong to that kind of family anyway. I found my people, the ones who chose to love me. And that's worth more than all their money, their name, and their cruelty combined. I am free. So here's my question for you. Have you ever had to walk away from toxic family members? Have you ever been the scapegoat in your family? Drop a comment below and share your story. Let's support each other, because nobody should have to face this kind of abuse alone. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories about overcoming family trauma and finding healing. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear that they're not alone, and that it's possible to build a beautiful life after leaving toxicity behind. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope it gave you hope, strength, or at least the knowledge that you deserve better. Remember, you are worthy of love, respect, and happiness no matter what anyone in your past told you. Take care of yourselves and each other. Until next time, choose your peace, choose your people, and choose yourself.